Welcome. It's time for another episode of To the Moon with Voxx. This is a place where psychic phenomena meet science and world society and culture. So, this is going to be an exploration from the dates of July 11th all the way through to July 17th. We just had the new moon in Cancer yesterday at around 9:16 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And so it's kind of really the 4th of July for our country. It's the new moon. It's when the sun moves into Cancer, which is the birth sign of our country. And the moon is in the same place. And that's usually also where you get like solar eclipses from that kind of energy. But we already had one of those a while ago, so we could talk about that later. But anyway, whenever the moon is in a new sign, it's going to bring all the kinds of energies that are associated with that sign. And Cancer rules the idea of the home, the mother, security, food, cars, breasts,
I know it
stomach.
rules food.
Yeah, you do.
Yep.
And I mean, think about it. One of our biggest celebrations of the year is all about food and rockets and killing people for the security of our homeland.
Wait, what? That took a dark turn. Wow, where did that come? Rockets or cancer energy? I would have never thought that.
No, they're not. However, the sun does square, the sign of Aries, which is ruled by Mars. But anyway, it's all about defending the freedom and defending one's security in one's home. So it's kind of
Uh,
interesting. I also think it's interesting. People like Benjamin Franklin, one of my big heroes, he decided what the astrological chart would be of our country, and that's why they actually chose that specific date, July 4th,
that's
1776.
interesting. And I think I
Yeah,
read something to the effect of even Washington, D.C., our capital was planned. I guess the Masons designed it, the
yeah,
Freemasons, and was
yes, they did.
planned with astrological undertones. And like apparently, if you zoom out, bird's eye view of the way the streets are laid out, the statues are positioned, apparently there's some symbolism there that's not easily apparent when you're standing in front of it.
Well, they're basically creating satanic pentagrams. That's a truth. That's truth. And also, you should even find out what the really weird, nefarious stuff that was planned by the expensive Masons, the
Hey, hold
foes,
on. As opposed to what? The budget Masons?
no, the Freemasons.
The volunteers? uh,
Oh, that was bad.
yeah, I'm
Don't worry, they
standing
get
by
worse.
it.
No, but it's not a joke. Most of those guys were Freemasons, into the occult. They were into black magic. This is not an opinion. This is just historical fact. So, and our country was not founded on any Christian principles whatsoever. By the way, they added "In God We Trust." I think it was 1952, or whoever, FDR. He was the one who put that on the dollar bill.
No, really?
Yeah.
So back when our currency was backed by real money, we didn't have God anywhere on the note?
No,
Or I should,
absolutely not. And I think that's really interesting.
I do
Those
too.
those guys would be popping a wheelie in their collective graves if they understood what we were doing, trying to combine religion with the state. That
Hmm.
was an absolute no-no. That's actually why we came over from England. That's what
Yeah,
we
we're
were
trying to
rebelling
separate from
against.
that crap.
Yeah, you know, we bailed. Like, people from all these countries, they bailed to come here to get away from that, and here we, just reestablished it,
Yeah,
you
but
know?
it's a weird time right now, and it seems like in the grand echo chamber that is the internet, it seems like people have started to separate away from the notion of God, which I don't think is any better. There's still something beautiful about a spiritual framework, whether it's Christianity or Islam or whatever works for you, except for Scientology, because fuck them. But but
You
seriously,
you
like, but I think that when you lose faith, you lose some degree of purpose. We
well,
speak about astrology, but I believe in a God as well. I don't know who he is, but I bet he knows who I am.
yeah, Lord, we're in so much trouble, but whatever. But seriously, this stuff is based on truth, whatever truth is. I mean, we were created on July 4th, 1776. And then we had the Constitution and all the other kinds of documents were signed on other different dates, interestingly enough. But there are astrological charts that you can get a hold of just, on the internet and look up the different planetary aspects and the degrees. And one thing we were talking about on our last show was the Pluto return of our country, United States of America, which happens at 28 degrees Capricorn.
That is
And
directly opposing my sun. Fun fact.
whoa,
I'm 2806 Cancer.
uh,
So
I don't know if I'd be bragging about that right
I'm
now,
not
but
bragging. I'm just saying it's interesting that I have a hard opposition thing happening there. What's up with that?
well, it might be why you're doing this show. I mean, think about it. It doesn't mean that anything's bad for you, but it does show that there might be some kind of pressure in your life that will be occurring around that time that might actually make you think about moving to other countries.
Oh God, I will never do that.
Yeah, there's the thing. Astrology will show you stuff that you could do and you might do. It doesn't say you absolutely will do it.
Sure.
You know,
And I
even
think
in
that fact is lost on a lot of people, and it breeds skepticism on their part. They're like, astrology isn't dictating your behavior. I think it's pointing out predispositions to characteristics, like we talked about last episode. It doesn't mean you're gonna do that. It doesn't mean you're gonna win the lottery. It doesn't mean that you're an emotional person all the time. And I don't know.
yeah, I mean, these are things that we make decisions on. Even in the Bible, people go, "That's kind of oxymoronic, Vox." I mean, you're talking about the Bible, and then you're doing tarot cards and astrology, which is against the Bible, which is, depending on which chapter of the Bible you are reading. In Corinthians, it talks about one of the gifts of the Holy Spirit, which is prophecy, the gift of prophecy, and that's something that I do. So, and I'm not a fortune teller. So basically, it's how you use these abilities. Now, here's the other cool thing. Once you study this stuff for a long enough time, you start finding out all kinds of really weird stories. But the Council of Nicaea, remember that?
I feel like you've spoken about it, but no, I'm not. I can't pull it off the top of my head.
I think it's in the year 1300 something something. But the Pope and all his cronies went to France, and they literally decided there and then which books were going to be included in what we now call the
Okay, I know what you're
Bible.
talking about. I thought that was way before 1300.
No,
Oh.
no, they just finally went, "Wait a minute, our story's kinda getting a little bit weird. Maybe we should just decide on a version."
Well, that's a frustrating thing about Christianity is I think a lot of evangelical believers, which are fine. I would ascribe my faith closer in line with theirs than any other faith, but they seem to think that this Bible being the ultimate word of God, they might be missing the point that this is just the arbitrary collection of books that men decided would become the Bible.
That's
At
right.
least the Mormon faith is consistent, and the word came down from Moroni, and everything's in one location. But this is like how many books are in the Bible? 27.
Oh, no, there's a lot more. Those are the ones that made the cut.
Yeah, I want the unabridged Bible.
I want
It's like,
the, director's cut. Yeah. King James.
yeah. What?
Where he changed all the wording and stuff. And, no, so they just literally decided that, and there are some books. There's one book called The Lost Books of Eden that was edited and put out back in the '90s, which were the compilation of all the books that didn't make the cut.
What? How did they find it? Where did they find this literature at?
Well, let's think about this for a second. Where did they find all the books that did make it into the Bible? Let's think about it. Let's say you go to Malta and you go to the island or close by the Greek island of Patmos, Patmos. That's where St. John got kicked out of the church, and they were basically running him out of town. So he lived in a cave, lived on some herbs and berries somewhere in this cave out on the island of Patmos, and he's the guy who wrote the Apocrypha slash the Apocalypse that was later on added to the Bible. That was not an original part of the Bible. And he's the one who wrote basically the Apocrypha from the Catholic Bible is what Christians call Revelations.
Mhm. I heard that that was bolted on at the end. I
Yeah.
heard about that. Like, it's not even part of the original. I
No,
guess
no.
that in the King James version, they bolted it on
Yeah.
as a device to instill fear.
And not only that, but in the Catholic Bible, which was the first one, they called it the Apocrypha, which is the things that come from the end of time, which is a favorite subject of ours. Now, interesting, the word Apocrypha comes from the ancient word Greek, and also there's a level of Egyptian to it. apos, A-P-O-C, means to cut. And the ancient god Apos from the ancient Egyptians was the god of cutting.
Oh,
So
that's
and he
cool.
was yeah, and he was associated with Set, and he was the cutter.
Now, is Set the jackal?
Yeah,
Have I
you
got
could
that right?
actually, believe it or not, I did so much work on this. He was not technically a jackal. We're gonna try not to laugh when we say he was more like an aardvark. There's some strange creature that it was that had those weird ears and the body of an armadillo. Very strange.
I wonder if it was a tapir, Tapir.
That's a good you know what? That's actually a really good guess. That's actually a really good guess. Maybe we'll find out one day. But the basic idea is those were the visions that he had on all those crazy berries he was eating in the cave. The Greek word byblos, Byblos, which simply means
Yeah, I was gonna say
book.
the book.
This
Right.
book. Here's the book. Okay. And this particular group of stories was compiled, from several hundreds of years. Now, let's get real. Do you remember what you had last Wednesday for dinner? Okay. You might if you wrote it down, but there's a huge chance you didn't do that. So if we were to sit here and say that all of that information that was transcribed into books that were put together and called the Bible, we don't know what part of it is true, what part of it is metaphor. We don't know any of that. We can't prove it. I mean, actually, one of the first times I got yelled at by my mother, I was 13 years old and I was bored and I had read every book in the house because our family's full of voracious readers. And my mom called me. I was in my bedroom reading a book. Actually, I was reading the Bible and I was starting, in Genesis. And my mom yells up, "Hey, Fox, come down here and like set the table for dinner." And I said, "I'm busy." And she says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm reading." And this is all yelling up and down the stairs, right? She goes, "What are you reading?" I said, "The Bible." And she goes, "Are you out of your mind? Put that down. You're not supposed to read the Bible. How dare you?" And I went, "What?" She goes, "No. Yeah, how dare you question the word of God? You put that down." Hey, I was just trying to read the
That's
Bible.
a twisted way for her to view that.
Yeah, I was like, "Okay." And now this comes also on my dad's side. My great-grandfather was a full-blood, Cherokee, pastor in a little town in Tennessee, in a coal mining town. He was so charismatic, they built him his own church in a little town called Vasper. So he's out there, doing evangelical work, talking and quoting the Bible. But here I am just trying to read through Genesis and I get in trouble. You know, Either way though, it's a great book, but it had nothing to do with the foundings of, our country. It just didn't. So there,
Right. It
you
seems
know?
like a part of the thrust of founding the country would be to get away from the dogmatic religious overtones that were in England at the time, right?
Yeah, and lots of other places too.
Yeah.
So anyway, we come here and then what, 250 years later, all these old tendencies come back
Mhm.
out. People are attacking each other. Um, I don't even know what to say about the fact I just saw a photograph of some guy in, Toronto somewhere, a T-shirt with a that was torn up. It was a Confederate flag, and I'm like, "Dude, not only are you in the wrong country, you're in the wrong war." I mean, what's going on? So when we're talking about Pluto moving into the sign of revolution, and it's not even the 29th degree, it's 28, so things are about to get really intense. I mean, we're already seeing it.
Like on a global scale, you mean, right?
Absolutely, but
Yeah.
specifically for our country, we're, like, in serious disarray. So if you're thinking, like, being related to somebody whose grandparents sailed over on a boat from Italy and Ireland, and in less than 200 years, we wanna go back. It's
Yeah.
like, wait.
I know, and I know it's a bit of a joke, but a couple of years ago in LA County, there's always an influx of people leaving Mexico to get into the US, and 2 years ago, the flow reversed, and it was
Yeah.
and that's crazy, or at least that's what I read. I guess I could take that with a grain of salt, but I feel like I read that in, a reputable. Nah, I guess I don't really remember, but I remember being shocked by that, and then thinking, "Nah, can't really blame them."
Well, yeah, and some of my clients are actually buying condos, all over Mexico. The police are out now on the streets. The cartels are really getting out of
Yeah.
hand and stuff too. So
Well,
it's
they were
just a
hanging
great.
people from the bridges in Tijuana, and remember, I lived in Chula Vista at the time. I worked for the Navy. I lived in Chula Vista, and it's not a joke. The cartels were killing people. They were killing civilians, and they were hanging them from freeway bridges. And this is true. And the reason I'm saying I lived in Chula Vista was I lived 7 miles from the border of Tijuana. And so you're thinking,
Unbelievable.
wow, that level of violence is this close to home. And it was. That's just the truth of it. My understanding is that calmed down a lot over there, though.
Well,
You don't
let's
think
put it
so?
this way, I think it's just the news that might just be trying to deflect the horror of a lot of stuff that's going on there, but really the whole world is in turmoil right now. Pluto at those last degrees of any sign is gonna just kinda turn the screw, you know what I mean?
And how long does it take Pluto to move a complete degree?
It depends because it goes back and forth, different kinds of, retrograde motions and stuff like that. But, one of the cool things that I can share with our listeners on, To the Moon with Vox, I've got my blog at vox.org, voxx.org, and I frequently write about this stuff and post charts, for people to, follow along with what we're talking about, and blog posts regarding a lot of the subject matter that we're talking about too. But this all goes back to the new moon in Cancer. And yeah, because we have this whole new month-long foray. Well, the sun is in the sign of security, family, home, picnics, hot dogs, shooting, guns. Look what happened. Listen, listen what happened. Did you not see that gun violence in Chicago went up something like 386%?
Which is significant until you put it in perspective and realize it's 3,800% to begin with in Chicago. So,
Yeah.
it's relative. I don't think gun violence going up in Chicago is worth raising. Oh, well, first of all, any gun violence is terrible. So I don't mean to sound laissez-faire about the whole thing, but 300% increase in Chicago is probably an extra 20 people from the 880 that have died this year so far. It's ridiculous the violence that they have. N-
That's true. However, look at the new situation that's going on where people are just blowing each other away in cars. Cars are another symbol of Cancer that's ruled by the seventh trump, the chariot, no less.
Hmm,
And there's a whole spate of like, drive-by shootings, people just looking at you kind of cross-eyed in the car. Just literally, I don't even know how people are such great sharpshooters or shooting people right in the head while they're driving on a freeway. This just happened. I mean, so that shows you that there are some negative aspects to the sun in Cancer. Yeah, as soon as the sun really makes that hard opposition on your birthday, uh, I have no doubt, like 3 days before that and 3 days after that time, that week span, that you're gonna hear some of the craziest, you know, offenses that you've ever read. Super
great.
violent. Now, let's look at reality on the sense that most of the most violent crimes that happen between family members.
Yeah.
Who's the first person that gets looked at by the FBI when the wife
Yeah.
goes missing? You
Well,
know?
and that old saying, familiarity breeds contempt. That is true. That's a part of human psychology, I believe. If
Yeah.
you're around, I think there is a violent streak just in human nature, and obviously, we hope that we psychologically evolve out of that
Well,
position.
it's not
But
looking likely. I'm such a light of a font of hope and inspiration. Oh god, I love it.
it's crazy because I never would have associated cancer with anything violent as a cancer myself, and granted at the very cusp, but I never really. I always would associate Mars with gun energy, or even
Well,
Pluto with bazooka energy.
Mars rules steel and iron, okay? So
But also
weapons.
puncturing, right? Isn't Mars the bullet that
Yeah,
goes through the wall?
puncturing. Yeah, but let's look at this really cool tidbit. I meditate on a lot of really weird things, as I am wont to do. Look at the poor lowly crab, all right? try, like, putting your finger in front of a crab and see what happens. Okay, you won't get your finger back.
Yeah, you're
It's
getting
your
clipped.
finger or the arm of the crab. It's not going to let go. And that's exactly the kind of grudge mentality that Cancerian energy has. Look at us as a country. We have that personality. We hold a grudge. If you don't do it our way, we're going to sanction your ass. You know,
Yeah.
we play like a really intense emotional game, like, oh, we're the big brother, or we're going to take care of you. Oh, here, let us put our troops, in your backyard and all this stuff. Like, we're pretending that we're taking care of everybody, but what we're really doing is protecting our interests. And
Mhm.
that's okay because I'm an American and I'm all for it because I'm from here.
Right, but,
I don't
imagine
like,
being the Russian that's been sanctioned for or the Afghan who well, okay, there are countries that we are okay, Venezuela, for example. So, our embargoes on Venezuela are directly responsible, whether we like it or not, for sending that country into becoming a failed state. There's no way
yeah,
around it. We were their largest export partner. They had an oil-based economy. Hugo Chavez went and fucked around. The U.S. said, "Well, screw that. We'll just trade embargo your ass." Fast forward 10 years, and it is literally chaos in the streets. No electricity. Their currency has been devalued something like 5 million%. I think that's called stagflation,
yeah,
and that's a failed state now because of U.S. intervention. Well, they didn't play ball; they didn't play our ball.
that's
I'm not
the
a fan
thing.
of that either because the people hurt in that case. I mean, say what you want about Hugo Chavez, but the people are directly suffering for this. It's not fair, man.
Yeah, and that's everything we're describing. We're not really even trying to get political. Can you we oh, yeah, like we really mapped out the show to be political. No, we didn't. We just start following the thread of the sun in Cancer, the moon in Cancer. It's very possessive. It's very manipulative to continue its security. It's gonna do whatever it has to do to remain in control of the food source, of the electricity, of all of the amenities and all the securities. That's what Cancerian energy is about. Conservation and self-interest and self-protection. And so if somebody kind of looks at us a little bit crazy, we're gonna get set off. Somebody makes a weird gesture to you and like with their hand, and is it really worth getting blown out of your car by an AK-47? No, it's not. So the reactions of that, are very drawn back to the idea the sun in Cancer and the moon in Cancer, which is what we just went through yesterday. Now, the moon in Cancer, which is the Four of Cups, is called luxury. And this is really interesting because when I'm always doing my research, I ask, oh, show me the card for this or show me the card for that. And I'll randomly pull cards meditating. One time I asked my spirit guy, I was like, all right, what's the absolute most evil, dangerous card entire deck of
Oh, can I
six?
guess?
Yeah, what's the guess?
I'm gonna. Well, I'll never say the tower. I don't like saying the word, but I'll go with the Ten of Swords.
No, guess what? It was the Four of Cups.
Really?
Yeah, I was shocked. The moon in Cancer was the most evil card in the deck. Now you think about it, it's called luxury. Right? The moon is a fluctuating asteroid slash planet in a sign that's desperately trying to create security, which there is none. There is no security. Forget it. Doesn't exist. It's an
So it's just
ideal.
a failed effort or a doomed to never reach completion type energy.
Yeah, because as soon as you win the game, either the game restarts, you're not in it, or that game is over. So the deal is the moon in Cancer, it's shifty. And we just had the moon in Cancer. It's like on the last legs of it right now, moving to Leo as we speak.
Yeah,
So
I'm
the
seeing
moon in
that.
Cancer is all about fluctuation and uncertainty. And how do people react when they feel threatened and that things are uncertain? They
Uh,
start they cheat, they hedge their bets. They do
yeah.
something to keep themselves in control. So when you look at it that way, you realize, wait a minute, moon in Cancer, that's insidious. And literally, let's think about this. Who in the world does anything that's worth $1 billion? Seriously,
I know.
come on. Oh, wait, now let's say 10 billion. Let's say $100 billion. When my dad was in school, he actually got spanked with a ruler on his hand because he asked about the word trillion, and his teacher blew up and said there's no such word.
I'd be inclined to agree with this teacher, at least in the context of money. That's
Well, nobody even
just,
knew. Yeah, nobody had even invented the word yet.
oh, it's like that.
Yeah, he was like, "Oh, what are you talking about? Don't." You got that one smart ass in the back of class that ruins the curve for everybody. Well, I know what the north node of Antarctica, but anyway, so that's what we're dealing with, and there's no way to legally, ethically make that kind of money and then throw everything else off kilter. So you got that moon in Cancer, and the card for that is luxury. Let's think about luxury. How do you get luxury? You stack the cards against everybody else so that you can win, right? People may
Yeah.
say, "Oh, yeah, you legally won, you pulled the lottery number." That's because everybody and their brothers spent their last dollar to fund the lottery, and you just so happen to walk away with it. But is it really fair?
But wait, I would like to, if I can add to that. I think fair is a moral construct. I don't think there's fairness in nature or in reality. I don't think it's like saying that we have a justice system. We don't have a justice system. There is no justice. There's a legal system, and
Exactly,
right.
and I
But
think
it's a small but important distinction.
well, I
There's no,
totally agree with you on that.
yeah, there's no
There is no
fair.
yeah,
So they're playing the
okay,
game by the way the rules. And I remember Trump said this when he was first campaigning. Hillary Clinton said, "Well, you donated to my campaign." He said, "I was playing the game by your rules," and there is some wisdom in that. I'm not doing a pro-Trump bit, but he's right. He played the game according to the way the rules were constructed.
yeah,
People will do that. Jeff Bezos will have, I don't know what, $54 billion a quarter or something in revenue, something insane.
yeah. It's called positioning. You position yourself like the whale shark, right? Ever seen a whale shark?
I have. They sit there with, yeah, just a big wide open mouth.
They're just huge.
They are big.
All you gotta do is just sail by and your dinner. So some people position themselves where they're going to continuously benefit. And ultimately, maybe all those rivers fall into that one part of the sea. And so we can't even attack these people. And it's not really fair to attack them. These are people that did what they were going to do, put themselves in a good situation,
Mhm.
worked hard to get where they're at, and now they're like rolling in it. But but it's just completely imbalanced. You don't have to say is it fair, but it's really imbalanced.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with the sentiment. And I wasn't trying to attack the fair point. I was just saying I don't think reality operates on a right or wrong thing. I think morality does, but not reality. So
Yeah,
I'm
and
not a fan of people positioning themselves in a way where it takes from others, but I understand why they would, you know?
yeah, and I'm totally agreeing. Life isn't fair.
No.
It's just not.
Well, and the notion of fairness, the notion of fairness implicate or it infers that you're owed something, right? Because that would be fair. He has it, why can't I? And I guess I'm
Exactly.
speaking kind of loosely here, but no, you're not owed shit. Not really.
No.
You make your own luck. Well, we both know that's not entirely true. But for the most part, you make your own luck. You can't change where you're from, but you can change where you go. This concept of free will and screw this predetermined outcome thing. You're not owed any.
Ordinarily, I would agree more with you on that point. However, the way that the game has gotten played, it really does seem to matter now.
What?
Uh,
Wait, what does?
the fact of like, yeah, you don't even have the power to get out.
Oh, I see where you're going with that. And yeah, I see what you're saying. But
More
did you
now
ever have
than
the
ever.
power? Because you have
Yeah,
to think.
more now than ever. It's not just like, "Oh, you're poor. Oh, get over it. Make some money." It's just not that easy anymore
Oh,
because it
but I
is so
don't know.
balanced.
I don't know if it's now more than ever because this is a bias because we're in the now. But I would argue that early America during the industrial age, when you had the Carnegies and the Rockefellers, and the what were they called? The tycoon, I can't
The
remember
t the
the name of.
tycoons,
Yeah, there's a term for that. But you had these
moguls,
big. No, but anyway, at any rate, but you had
titans
these.
of industry.
Yeah, okay, absolutely. But here's the thing: you have Carnegie, who has literal more money than God at the time, and then you have a character like J.P. Morgan, who writes a check for U.S. Steel, which I guess for 800 million in 1905 or whenever the date was. It's incalculable money. And what I'm saying is, I think that poverty was rampant at that time. I think that there were still kids. There was the concept of a chimney sweep. For God's sake, Fox, when's the last time you've seen a chimney sweep? You
Yeah,
know,
nobody
I
can even afford a chimney now.
oh, touche. Oh,
Seriously.
but you know
No,
what I'm
and I
saying.
agree
Like, I
with
don't
you. I'm
think
just saying now it just seems it's really hard to get out of it.
but I think I'm arguing that I think it's never been easy to get out of it. The
Okay, I
very
agree.
notion, all
I agree
Carnegie
with that.
was the Bezos of the day. You know, that's all he was. He had positioned himself, and meanwhile, there's poor people in the streets, and there's I don't think it was any better. It was any better back then than it is now, but I
No,
certainly
it
would
really
argue it's still
isn't.
worse.
There was a new book that I think Taschen put out, the publisher, calling "The World Has Always Been Horrible." It's actually a real book. We have to check it out. Maybe I'll have to sell it now. But, yeah, all of this, we weren't even planning on talking about this, were we?
No,
But as soon as you talk about the new moon in Cancer, didn't it get really intense? Didn't it really get about family and fairness, protecting what's mine, and get off my lawn? You
yeah,
know,
even the
all we had to do
conversation.
is talk about it, and it created itself.
Well, can I ask you about a different aspect or energy that's happening right now?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
what's this Mars squaring Uranus right now? Or, excuse me, what's this Venus squaring Uranus right now? What's going
Hold
on
on, let me
there?
look. Venus square Uranus? Well,
Yeah,
not
well,
much.
Venus is conjunct Mars squaring Uranus. At least that's what I'm seeing. I'm unsure what to make of the whole Venus conjunct Mars energy.
Well, Venus conjunct Mars actually have that in chart. And in the sign of Leo, it's
Yeah.
really intense, it's very self-aggrandizing, it's very passionate, which feeds into, again, a lot of the easy anger that people are feeling right now, really amped up. Venus conjunct Mars in Leo, the fixed fire sign. Let's see, what would be something that would fit that description? Oh, the entire West Coast on fire? Having I don't know if you read about this, 6 earthquakes yesterday between, the borders of California and Nevada. Did you read about that?
I didn't. I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, that's classic. That's classic, and it wasn't squaring it because when, Leo is exactly opposite, it's an opposition, it's not a square. Now what it's squaring is Uranus in Taurus, so it's a fixed square depending on the degrees.
So is that a T square? Does a T square
No.
require a third? Okay.
No. T-square, it's just like a crucifix without a top on it,
I'm seeing a
right?
T square with Mars, Uranus, and Saturn. So Mars in Leo, Uranus in Taurus, and Saturn in Aquarius. Oh, and Venus in Leo. So we have a hard T square happening right now.
Yeah, and it's in a fixed sign, which means people that have any Leo planets, Aquarius, and Taurus, and Scorpio people will be really feeling it, really
So let
feeling
me
the burn, like, literally and
well,
figuratively.
let me ask you. So is Capricorn the fixed Earth sign?
No, it's a
It's cardinal,
cardinal.
right?
That's cardinal, yeah.
So when you're saying fixed, you're only talking about the Leo portion of the T square is fixed.
No, because Leo is a fixed fire sign, Aquarius is a fixed air sign, and Taurus is fixed earth sign. So it's a hard T-square. It's a fixed
Oh, I,
T-square.
and excuse me, my error on this. I was looking at Saturn and erroneously naming him Capricorn, which I should not have been doing. I was just noticing. At any rate, that's my mistake.
That's okay, but here's the thing, Saturn's getting ready to go back into Aquarius, where it will be for another few months, so you accidentally were right. It is within range of being, you know, in the fixed sign of Aquarius. It's 1 degree away.
Fixed in this context meaning persistent, a persistent square, like persistent energy,
No,
relentless.
it's just like a nail. It's like metal. It's just like metal. It's like hard. You can't bend it.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. The energy is rigid and unyielding, right?
Exactly. An
Okay.
immutable case everybody's just really uncomfortable and things aren't working out. There's a mutual friend that you and I have that got married in February a few years ago, and that person's a Sagittarius. They got married while the sun had just moved into Pisces, and the person that they married had Pisces rising. So could you see the mutable square?
I don't know what to
And
do with that.
if you see the mutable square, you would see the couple that got married on that date has had persistent difficulties. Mutable squares, they just make you squirm and be super uncomfortable for expansive time. Fixed squares will snap your car in two, you know? They'll just break stuff, you know?
So
A
when is a
and a
square a positive thing?
never.
Oh, well,
It's just not.
my understanding is trining is just a harmonious exchange of energy, and that can be for good or evil, or good or evil is the wrong way to say it, but
No, it's the trine indicates ease, EASE. Ease,
it can easily be bad or easily be good. It's not by its
exactly, depending
nature
on
positive.
exactly. A mutable square or a mutable cross, which is, say, you have a Virgo hanging out with Pisces during Thanksgiving dinner, which happens in Sagittarius, at their mother's house, who's a Pisces, you got yourself a grand
You
cross, okay, of mutability. And you saw what happens. We were talking about mutable signs ruling the most interesting serial killers. You know, you'd think, oh, what happens with a mutable square is you're so comfortable. Sooner or later, you're going to blow and do something crazy. So if you were imagining you were going to have a mutable cross, you'd have like a friend who's a Virgo bringing their Pisces friend, and it's going to be Thanksgiving dinner, which happens during the time of mutable Sagittarius. And at your mom's house, who's a Pisces, you'd have a mutable grand cross, and everybody would be extremely uncomfortable. So, crosses, depending on if it's fixed, cardinal, or mutable, they just lend such a state of just discomfort that ordinarily you're just going to blow at some point and somebody's probably gonna get hurt because the level of uncomfortability is just too heavy. It's like usually those kind of squares happen when you hear somebody say, "Yeah, it was the straw that broke the camel's back," or like, "Gee whiz, he was such a nice guy till he, blew everybody with an AK-47," in the mailroom. It's like the least thing that you would ever expect, but that's how these really seemingly nice planets, they go back. So right now we have a situation where we're gonna be having Mercury moving into Cancer on July, uh, where is it? Yeah, July 11th, which is tomorrow. Fancy that. 0 degrees, 4:35 PM Eastern Standard Time. And what that's gonna do, along with the sun and moon, which just happened in Cancer, Mercury's gonna be moving onto the sun, and it's gonna be probably a lot more communications with people, a lot more travel, things of that situation. So a lot of family visits, vacations, all that. That's pretty nice kinda stuff. But the moon's gonna be moving into Leo, and it's happening actually right now, and that's gonna be squaring some of the planets in Aquarius. So it's just a really volatile time. There's just really not a lot you can do with it. Now, interesting enough, the tarot card that goes along with Mercury and Cancer
I
is
was
the
right
3
about to ask you that. I had my mouth open. So, and that's true. I was going to ask you, what does the tarot say with Mercury and Cancer? So, by all
No,
means, please.
yeah, the 3 of Cups is, in the Golden Dawn Tarot, and the Crowley Thoth Tarot is called Abundance. And it sounds great, but abundance of what?
Yeah, it's never abundance of money, is it?
It's abundance of headaches. I'm really sick and tired of this new age nonsense where people are like, "Oh, I'm manifesting." And I'm like,
Oh
"Well,
God.
what are you manifesting?" And they go, "Uh, I don't know." I'm like, "Mhm, exactly." Listen, when it's okay to ask for abundance, but clarify,
Well,
What
this
power?
monkey's paw thing is real. I'm surprised that people haven't picked up on this yet. You better be careful what you wish for, and you better phrase it very specifically because life will give you exactly what you wish for every time. I can't count the times where I've been like, well, that's what I get.
Yeah.
That's exactly what other red flag did I need? You know?
Actually, I read a really good poem the other night. I'm also a poet. I'm a published surrealist poet. I read a line the other day, and the last line was, you can have exactly what you want as long as you no longer want it,
Yeah, I would be inclined to agree with that.
unfortunately.
Yeah, I'd be inclined to agree with that.
I would have remembered it better, but I had just written it.
Well, it seems like people, whether we realize it or not, the pursuit is the interesting part of success. I mean, I would argue once you get to that point, what do you do? Like, what do you do with this energy? The pursuit of greatness or the pursuit of success or the pursuit of love or happiness. But it's that whole old cliche of the beauty is in the journey, not the destination. Or you know what I'm saying? That one.
Where the journey is the destination,
Oh,
but
right.
the destination is the journey, you
You
know?
don't want to get to where you want to go because then your story's over, man.
Alright, this is brilliant, you know why?
What?
Because we've got 3 multi-billionaires right now, 3 of the world's most wealthy men, and 2 of them are gonna be shot off into orbit this week.
Oh man.
Okay,
That's
what does that tell you?
I don't know. It's so symbolic, but I can't put my finger
It's
on
like,
it.
"I got everything I wanted, now get me the hell out of here."
Or this is how bad God wants you to leave the planet. He gave you the means to just go.
Did you
This
hear about this? 41,000 people signed a petition to
Yeah.
refuse Jeff Bezos' re-entry into
Yeah,
Earth's
yeah, yeah.
orbit.
That's so funny. I don't even know if he's a bad dude or not because I saw some videos of him back when Amazon was first getting off the ground where they were literally a warehouse and he just seemed like a normal dude. He had this funny laugh. He was like, "I won't even hire somebody without a college degree," like the Revenge of the Nerds laugh. I'm like,
But
"That's Jeff Bezos?" Like
no, but you forgot the element of time.
time in the context of change.
Yeah, he
Yeah, I
may
guess
have been that way. Nobody I mean, we can't speak definitively as to what kind of person he is,
that's true. And you only know what you see, what the media presents you. We don't
but
know
I
him.
can
What
assure you what I pick up from him. We'll do his chart next week.
Yeah, I'd like that.
We'll do the charts of the billionaires.
That would be fun. I'd like to do honestly the charts of the older ones too. The tycoon
What
era.
Cthulhu?
Here's my thing with Cthulhu. I'm reasonably sure he's a Scorpio with Pisces rising.
Oh my god, that's pretty good.
I know that's the sense I get from him.
I don't know, you're scaring me, dude. That's kinda hard to do.
Oh
I've
man.
seen it all.
Did you ever look at H.P. Lovecraft's chart?
Actually, I have.
Oh, what's up with it?
It's on my website. You wanna check it out right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Can
Let's
you read
do
it
it.
off?
This is why I love to be my own boss. I can
Yeah,
do whatever
creative
the hell
freedom.
I want. Hold on, let me
Oh,
check it out.
okay. Are you able to talk about something while you're looking for that? Because
Yeah.
I have a question about the
What?
yod. Oh yeah, we're
Again?
supposed to do Yod Hey Saturday, weren't we?
Oh, yeah,
Thank
you forgot.
Totally forgot.
It's all your fault.
So the yod, when I hear the word yod, I think of God. Does it have a different meaning?
No, Yod means God.
Oh, there's that.
Yeah, because God created us with what? His hands.
So yod is the hand,
Yod is technically the finger,
the
but the
finger of
finger
God.
is connected to the hand, and God made us with his hands, or so the story goes. Oh, you're gonna love this. Alright, we're looking at the chart of H.P. Lovecraft. I love my job. So let's see. Ask me some questions. Feel
Okay,
free.
here's what I'm thinking. I think he's going to be heavy. I'll just do some guesswork on my part.
Okay,
Joking aside, I think he'll be heavy Scorpio and heavy Pisces energy.
let's check it out. 0 Scorpio, anything,
Really?
and yeah, and Pisces, no bueno.
Really? I struck out?
You totally struck out,
Oh,
dude.
see, it sucks being an astrological rookie because you think finally you understand things and you're like, ah, no, didn't. Okay.
Now here's what he does have that's interesting. He's got his Lilith at 0 degrees Virgo right on top of my vertex, which is writing that's really bizarre and subversive. and
Lilith,
that's
isn't
in
that
his
the female, the succubus?
Yes, exactly. Now let's think about this. There's absolutely 0 female characters. I think there might be 1 female character in an H.P. Lovecraft story, and I can't even name who that would be. Oh, I think it was the monstrous chick from The Shuttered Room who was like a monster and chained up in the attic. I think that was the only female character in his books. So
Hmm.
he's got that, and that's the only intimation of anything really weird.
So he's just a normal dude?
Absolutely not, I didn't say that.
Okay,
Okay,
sorry.
didn't say that. He was born at 27 degrees Leo. Interesting. He's got his Lilith at 0 degrees Virgo in his 12th house, and you do know that he was very reverential towards women to the point where he couldn't even really be with one. He was married to a woman named Sophia or Sophie, but they lasted a couple of years and then that was it. And he lived with his elderly aunts, kind of like in Arsenic and Old Lace kind of vibe in Providence, Rhode Island. He's got check this out, he's got Saturn conjunct Lilith in Virgo in the 12th house.
Can you explain to everyone Lilith astrologically? Because I'm completely blindsided by.
Well, Lilith is not even a real planet. It's a hypothetical planet that seems to be somewhere because of the way in which other planets move.
Oh,
It
so I
suggests
get it.
yeah,
That's how we discovered Neptune and Uranus, for that matter. Because, and this is, an astronomical fact, but we could infer. We didn't have telescopes that could see that far. And I wish I could remember the astronomer who did this, but he could infer from the wobble in the orbit that there was an opposing gravitational tug.
yep,
Like I guess, what's the planet right before Uranus?
Neptune.
Oh,
No, excuse me, Neptune's further out.
right.
Uranus, the
Is it
closest one
Saturn?
is Saturn. Is
Okay,
Saturn.
so he could infer from the wobble in Saturn's orbit, and he's a French guy, and I'm sorry, the name escapes me. He could infer from the wobble that there was something that he couldn't see that was influencing Saturn, and Uranus was the first planet discovered without ever being seen, and it turns out that it was true. I believe I'm telling that story correctly.
Yeah, and the guy who discovered Uranus was Herschel. And the
So
planet Uranus was originally named Herschel, Herschel.
then maybe I'm thinking Neptune here, because this is definitely a French dude. I
No,
might I might be thinking Neptune, but one of those gas giants,
yeah,
very far out. We had to infer its existence,
well, it
and
makes
turns out it
sense
was
to
true.
me. Yeah, but Lilith isn't technically a planet or a real asteroid, it's a hypothetical asteroid, and it rules the deep, dark recesses of, um, sexuality and mentality, like a person's super secret fetish, the
So
darkest thing that they won't even write in their diary.
so she's like 12th house type energy?
Yes, and
Okay.
that's exactly where she's at. However, she's in the sign of publications,
Which is
Virgo,
Libra, Virgo? Okay.
Virgo, and this is a guy who we should check it out. I'll send it up on my blog at vox.org. His little tiny room that he wrote in. Just like also Poe wrote in the same thing, and Poe actually lived in the same area that Lovecraft did for a while.
Were they
But
contemporaries, by the way? Or no?
what?
Were they contemporaries? Did they live at the same time
No,
period?
no, 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 no. Poe came first. Poe is God, quite frankly. He is also the first writer of the first detective mystery, murder
Oh, I figured that
mystery.
would be Sir Arthur.
No, no, it was
What's his
Poe.
name? Oh. Man, so when I was a
Arthur
child, I was
Arthur
reading.
yeah, Arthur Conan Doyle, who, by the way, I actually have visited in a seance with some major Hollywood producers that just flipped their lid when I contacted him because they didn't even tell me that's who they were trying to contact. That's a whole other story. But anyway, getting back to Lovecraft, he's got a conjunction between Mercury, Saturn, and Lilith. So is there any doubt what kind of dark, brooding energy? You never see anybody kissing, nobody's having sex, nobody's hugging anybody. Everybody oh, yeah, the only other female character was the witch from Dreams in the Witch House. So one female character was tied up as a driveling monster idiot up in the attic with chains in the shuttered room, and the only other one was the evil witch from Dreams in the Witch House, which I think is probably the best book ever.
Really?
Oh my God. That book will blow your mind. It is so horrifying. But anyway, looking at H.P. Lovecraft's chart, and you can really kind of see who he is and what he was all about. And check this out. He's got Pluto in Gemini. So
Well, to
Gemini,
be fair,
yeah,
can I cut in on that real quick?
yeah,
To
sure.
be fair, so did everybody else in the world at that time, right?
No.
Well, with Pluto was in Gemini, this is a universal aspect, no?
Yeah, but I'm talking about him specifically and where it's at in his
Oh,
chart.
because is this okay? But just for my own clarification, now we're talking about because of the house Pluto is in.
Right.
Because Pluto's in
And
Gemini for everybody, but that might be his 8th house or his 12th house, which is a totally different energy, right?
it was in his ninth house of publishing.
Huh.
And check this out. Here's the missing link. Neptune conjunct Pluto in the ninth house. So what's he writing about? Death, monsters under the sea. It's in
Interesting.
his chart.
That
It's
is
in his
interesting.
chart. No females, no love, no sex, just ancient sea monsters. And by the way, he does have an interesting pentagram in his chart, which
Oh,
is
how does that
weird.
work?
Well, those are based on basic aspects. There's some of those lines that could be a trine, some which can be a square, but they show as a pentagram.
Well, if you have a yod and a grand trine, right? If you have these aspects overlaying each other, is that what you mean? Like the way that the aspect looks on the chart, it looks like a
Yes,
pentagram?
literally.
Hmm.
And what I'm going to do for our listeners, I'm going to post it. I'm going to post it on my blog at vox.org so people can see it, and I'll highlight it. So yeah, so here you have a guy who's really outrageous, but he doesn't show it externally.
Yeah.
He shows it through his work. And his work is highly regimented. Saturn in Virgo. Okay. This is a guy who never left his desk. Like, forget it. He's got Venus and Libra in the first house, making him like a very gentle kind of soul and really needing emotion and connection with people, but not really receiving it. But this is interesting. He's got the moon conjunct Uranus at the luckiest degrees of Spica, a fixed star in his first house. And though he doesn't really look very handsome, he's not very physically charming, somehow he's very attractive. But it's this really weird energy that he puts out. And he's not very fulfilled. Check this out. You'll love this. I've been able to find out causes of death from looking at people's charts. I won't do it for a client because it's absolutely unethical.
I
Uh,
wouldn't want to know.
if I was really worried about a client, I would find a way to get them to the doctor and let them know what should get checked out. But I would give them a lot of hope and a lot of positivity. But in H.P. Lovecraft's chart, he's got Saturn conjunct the Lilith in the 12th house, Virgo. Virgo rules the intestines
Mm,
and the colon. He died of colon cancer.
interesting. That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, very, very
Well,
interesting.
we've known people. This is one of the things that, I'm naturally a skeptic when it comes to, I don't know, the metaphysical anything. But one of the things I found pretty consistent with astrology is you can kind of infer what somebody's ultimate end will be if nothing else gets them first. And I know that's a bit nebulous, but what I mean is this. We had this, one of my friend's dads, his name was Bob, and he
Mhm.
was a smoker, and he has a very intense story that I don't know if I should go into on the air. You know what? I'll cut it post if it's inappropriate. So Bob, when he was younger, was like a leader of a biker gang in the 50s or whatever. And he's a bad motherfucker. He really was. And what
Mhm.
happened was a chick set him up. His girlfriend at the time, I guess she was dating a biker in a rival gang, and she's whatever was happening, she set Bob up. That she told him to meet her somewhere. The gang jumped him. They cut his balls off and they cut his stomach open and they stuffed his testicles in his stomach. That's it. Now Bob
Wow.
survived that. Okay. And then fast forward 20, 40 years later, now I know this version of Bob. I didn't know that version of Bob. And he's
Right.
just kind of like a hard country man, very cool guy. But
Mhm.
he was built in a way where once I found out the story, okay, at any rate, that didn't kill Bob. But what did kill Bob was throat cancer, and he had Mars and Taurus in his 12th house.
That's just like textbook.
That's what I'm saying. And so it's like, and for the audience here, Mars being, well, you'll say this better than me, but Mars I don't think affliction's the right word, but Mars is the scalpel. Mars is like that destructive type energy in this 12th house of hidden enemies. And what's the rest of the 12th house energy?
There's karma, prisons, hospitals, insanity, drug addictions, and self-undoing, which means whatever is happening, you set yourself up for that.
Right. And he died of throat cancer because he smoked.
Just interesting.
It's just interesting. And at Voxx, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We have
No, go
countless
ahead.
instances where we've discussed over the years, like, well, guess I'm not surprised that happened. And by the way, these words were written before this event happened to that dude. So it's not like we're molding astrology to fit his narrative. No, we can point this out in the common body of knowledge that is astrology well before he died. And when he does die, it's like, I'm not surprised. It's right here. This is what these energies are. You can tell me Mars and Taurus in his 12th house and he dies of throat cancer. Are you surprised at all? Because I'm not.
I'm not. And also a throat cancer too. It's interesting because it's different showing up than lung cancer.
Yeah.
Lung cancer, you'll have like effects with Gemini or any of the other planets that are ruled by air.
But with Taurus, Taurus directly ruling the throat. Am I correct in that one?
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
there you go. And I just find that endlessly fascinating. And so I tried to apply that to myself. And it's difficult for me. It's difficult for me to do that.
Well, it just makes sense. Now I'm writing some new books called anti-astrology, which is astrology that works on other planets from other planetary viewpoints. And in particular, this next book is coming out. It's Martial astrology / Martian astrology. Like if you were on Mars, where would your planets be?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't even think like that. They go, "Oh no," and that's why they don't believe it. There's
Well, but
another
what's the
thing.
value in that? What's the value in that? Because
Well, if
everything's
you decide that
relative.
you're going to live on Mars, you may as well figure out where your planets are going to be.
Well, I mean, that's a fair point, but
I mean, that's where I'm looking at.
like,
You know?
what if I was on Mars right now? It's like,
Yeah, but
oh,
that's the deal. People are trying to go there. So
yeah,
this is a book that's going to come out before it's time. What can I say?
oh, fair
Now, a
enough.
lot of people that say, "Okay, I don't believe in astrology," because that's not where the planets really are. They are correct. That's called sidereal astrology. And where the planets are right now is actually all one sign, at least most of them, before the sign that we're currently in.
But this is the importance and value of these planetary energies are relative to the observer. Like, I don't care where Saturn really is. I care where he is relative to me, to my ability to observe him.
Well, that's well put, and the reason that it works is because of the band of the zodiac around the ecliptic, and the declination of the planet is what allows planets to appear as if they are somewhere different than where they really are, and this is where the scientists like Neil deGrasse Tyson is complaining, "Oh, that's not where the stars really are. Oh, so therefore this is BS." Well, the deal is, let's get real. The moon, which is a dead asteroid, sorry, moon, okay, it has an effect on the Earth. It's not a Vox thing, it is a scientific fact. Without the moon in its orbit around the Earth, we would not have the ebb and flow of the tides, and our sea would be dead. It also rules the menstrual cycles and fertility cycles of all creatures on our planet. It's not an opinion, it is a scientific fact.
Yeah,
So if you're a flat earther, I can't help you.
no. And these tidal forces are real. The science and astrology can kind of we can reach a general agreement on planetary forces having a real physical effect.
They
On
do.
They do, and that's not what an astrologer's arguing. I
No,
appreciate you bringing this up, by the way, because we're never arguing that Saturn's not really 30 degrees Pisces, or we're not arguing that. It doesn't matter that you can scientifically observe that because astrology seems to be, I hate to keep saying it, relative to our ability to observe it. And the reason
exactly.
it is because when this body of knowledge was created over eons and eons, millennia ago, people didn't have, they don't know. They only know what they can see in the sky, and they can ascribe events in the moment to these celestial bodies in the sky as they're able to perceive them. There is no, the moon's not really there. There he is right here, and my dog just died. I,
And I think you're neglecting a really important point, which is that the Christians, bless them for listening to the show, if they're listening, we have to understand that the Tyrannosaurus and the Stegosaurus were alive technically 6,000 years ago at the birth of Christ.
I'm sorry, but
Before the comet hit. Yeah. Exactly.
oh, I see where you're going with that. Okay, yeah, and it's bullshit. No, and then and I my best friend in the world, his name is Matt, and Matt is a genuine evangelical Christian. He believes in the written word as it is written, and that is
Love you,
fine. I
Matt.
get it. Yep,
Love
love you,
you,
Matt.
Matt.
And so when I first met him, he's explaining to me that this is his position, and I'm completely cool with it. That's great. To me, that's a spiritual framework and the word of God to live by, and I respect it more than anything. But I said, you know that there were actual dinosaurs, though, right? And he goes, well, 9,000 years ago, I can't believe that. And by the way, I'm paraphrasing him. And I said, but Matt, we have fossils. He's like, can't account for it. I'm like, Matt, we can carbon date the fossils within plus or minus 50 years. Okay, and then anyway, whatever, right? 2 weeks later, he's like, bro, I know there were dinosaurs, right? And I was like, yep, I sure do know that. So he's
Oh,
not,
man.
I don't know. There's this dichotomy between what you put forward and what you do know to be truth. And
Exactly.
yeah, he does live by the word of the book. For sure, he does. But there were dinosaurs, and he freely acknowledges that. It's just whatever.
But there's just stuff. I mean, I meditated on this last week. Did you know? All right, so I'm considered an expert in like the occult, demonology, angelology, tarot. I'm written in the America's Top 100 Psychics. Like, so I know all this incredible stuff, and I realized it's all hearsay.
Mhm.
Have I ever measured the distance between myself and Jupiter? No, I have not. Have I named any of these stars? Have I personally been involved in any scientific discovery? No. So as far as I'm concerned, maybe every single thing that I know could be completely delusional.
Well, I'd agree with you, except you seem to be persistently and consistently proven right in your evaluations. And this is true. This is not me doing a sales pitch. I've seen it time and again. I've seen it time and again to the point where I just stopped arguing it and accepted it. And that's coming from somebody who believes nothing. And it's just like, well, at some point, I'm going to say, okay, what is it Leon Panetta said when the planes crashed into the Twin Towers? He said, one time's an accident, two times is a coincidence, and three times is a pattern. And there's clearly a pattern here. And you got to give some credit to that, whether your revelations are predicated on the tarot or on astrological movements that you're able to comprehend. They're generally pretty damn accurate.
Well, yeah, I have to say, praise God, right? Which some people find really oxymoronic,
Well, I don't.
'cause I'm always like, praise God, knock on
Yep.
wood. That's my thing. Because I can't prove any of this.
Well, because faith defies proof. This is an
Yeah.
important concept. There are things that you cannot prove. You can't prove that you're in love. Go ahead,
Nope.
try. Prove it. You can't. It's a feeling. You can't prove the existence of God, right? You can prove that Saturn's a real planet. So I don't need to take that on faith. I can prove it. But you can't prove a lot in this world. You have to take it on faith. You can't
Well,
prove it.
anyway, there's people that even if you can prove it, they still won't believe it.
Flat earthers, man.
There you go.
But I love a flat earther. I think it's probably my favorite human archetype because the answer is
Did you hear about the big campaign that they were doing?
no.
The flat earthers were like, they said, "Flat earthers around the globe, gather, unite."
Oh, that's so great. Oh, that's so great. I love that so much.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, "All right," because I can't prove any of this.
No, you just got to go on what has historically been accurate. That's all we can do. I appreciate that hearsay comment because ultimately, at the end of the day, if this is a human thing that we're discussing, 100% of it is hearsay. 100% of it is hearsay. We're not talking science when it comes to like the human psyche. We're not doing that. People have been telling tales and using that as a means of communicate. Hell, I think there were entire cultures in the past that never wrote down a single book of a single word of their book. Everything was told by mouth. Look at the Native Americans, and now those stories are
Actually,
lost to time.
that is a really cool point because literally, anybody that's ever heard of the thing called the Kabbalah, the way that I spell it in the Western magical tradition is Qabalah, and some people will spell it with a K and blah, blah, blah. The Kabbalah comes from a Hebrew word called kabal, QBL, which means to receive orally, meaning you heard it from the person directly, and I think that's really interesting.
I
But
do too, and
it's still hearsay.
it is, and it's open to it's that whole grapevine thing that we used to do when we were kids, where there's a circle of 10 of you. We would do this in school, and you're given a word, and you whisper it to the person to your left, and as that word travels around the circle, the word starts out as broccoli, and by the time it ends up at the end of the circle, it's airplane. It's just how people twist it and hear it, and that's a real testament against using the spoken word as a means to pass on generational knowledge. It will
Yeah,
get
'cause
twisted.
that's the Tower of Babylon as well. That's
Boy,
the
that
whole
tower.
symbolism behind the power of the Tower of Babel. And interesting enough, that like the tarot card, the tower, the Kabbalistic letter for that is P, which is pe, and pe literally means the mouth. And that is how the Tower of Babel, that was the whole purpose to build it. They were just trying to bypass having to go to church, having to do anything. They were just gonna build a tower straight to heaven so that it wouldn't matter what they said or what they did, they could still enter into the kingdom of heaven.
They just
And
wanted to communicate directly with God, eliminate the middleman.
exactly. And supposedly what happened, God destroyed the tower. So, in the tarot, that's another thing we'll start getting into more and more. There's a lot of hidden, subtext, to the symbolism of it. And I will say most people that are reading tarot cards today really should be, not doing that unless you have really studied astrology, numerology, Kabbalah, the whole kit and caboodle. You really shouldn't be holding tarot cards in your hand
Yeah.
because if you just are gonna fly by the seat of your pants with whatever pseudo intuition that you have that's also not trained, you can really hurt somebody. And so I actually do understand why, even people in the Bible or certain people say that, they don't wanna deal with it, and I applaud that. You should nobody needs to have a license to read your future, but they have to have one if they're doing hypnosis, they have to have one if they're doing psychology or any other kind of medical procedure. But here you are opening your mind and your psyche to a person who may not even have the discipline to read a simple book. It's like, no, I'm just not gonna do that. I don't even
Yeah.
allow people to read me anymore. I know what's going on. I'll read myself, thank you.
Yeah.
That's another thing too. Hopefully for our listeners in the future, they'll check out my Patreon and, check out some of the classes and stuff because I'm really not here just about talking about how amazing this is. I really wanna share it with people so that they can learn how to see these things for themselves. It's really
Right.
not enough coming from me or you, because again, it's hearsay.
Mhm.
It is. What I've recognized is patterns. That's what I recognize. I can see it really clearly what the pattern is. I can meet somebody brand new and go, "Oh, crap, nothing good's gonna come from this." And then you go, "Oh, stop being negative." And so you start believing in people, and then you counter, act on your own personal intuition, and then you get gravely disappointed, if not worse.
Mhm.
So, what we're all about, and I really think that why our show developed, is the intuitive kind of understanding that we have, you know? But we really do have sympathy for the human condition, and it's just, like, so easy to get help. It's so easy to see the patterns in front of you if you just open your eyes.
Yeah, easier said
And,
than done, though.
yeah,
Much.
that's true, but you know what? We just gotta keep trying.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay.
Let me try that bit one more time.
What part?
The whole thing with people saying I'm my own worst critic, because I was having difficulty phrasing what I was trying to say. But it's something to the effect of the older I get and the more people that I've met, I notice that more frequently than not, uh, people are able to find the faults in others. Not that that's a bad thing, but rarely are they able to turn it inwards and accurately assess their own. Uh, we have family members who are like this, who are very good at assessing other people's uh, what may ail them and how to fix
Right.
them, and then the cosmic irony being, and yet there seems to be an inability to apply it to yourself to reach fulfillment. And I'd see that I feel more often than not, and that to me is an important component of the human condition.
There's an old saying, the cobbler's children have no shoes. What that means is a lot of times we do things for other people at our own expense without gaining anything further for ourselves.
Hmm.
And that's
Sure.
like exactly what I think that you're talking about.
Yeah, I do too. You phrased it better than I was able to. Um, that seems like a very core component of the human psyche, just in general.
Well, there's a really good philosopher named G.I. Gurdjieff who had a statement called "Remember yourself always and everywhere." And then you have people like Yogananda, the great yogi, who talked about self-realization. Everybody can do this, but it seems so boring to work on yourself. It just doesn't feel any fun to sit there and figure out how screwed up you are, all the decisions you've made that blew up in your face. Nobody wants to be reminded of that stuff. However, if you don't examine yourself frequently, try not to judge yourself. Just examine it and say, "Oh God, what did I do? Oh wow, I saw how that turned out." You don't really need a psychic. You don't need tarot cards. You don't need astrology if you would be self-realized. But until people get brave and start doing what Gurdjieff called the work, which was to analyze the self, to work on the self, to become a better person, it's really all meaningless. And as you see how many people are fat and out of shape, angry, depressed, completely cut off from humanity.
Well, socially, there seems to be a lack of accountability that's been introduced in a grander context, where if people had more of a sense of accountability to themselves, they wouldn't let themselves get that way. And I know I'm speaking kind of heavy-handedly here, but if I
Well,
if I
you
felt
you
like you know what I'm saying with that? If I felt
yeah,
like
I do, but you have to have somebody to even suggest that that's a possibility.
I need inspiration and purpose, and I feel like people lack, unfortunately, it's probably more common than not that people are lacking one or both of those things.
Yeah, and it's also talking about the sun in Cancer again, the destruction of the family.
Man, I never would have thought that. You blew my mind with that. I'm as cancer as they come in a lot of ways, but I tend to take the opposite visceral feeling of that. I feel like I would try to preserve that at any cost, not destroy it. To me,
Well, but our behaviors destroy it.
well, and you know what? I can't argue that because mine definitely does. That would be very accurate now that I think about it. I don't like
And then
admitting
you look at society, and then you look at our publishing. You look at the kind of words that we read. You see the kind of ideology that we start, embracing. Stuff that makes us feel like we're more special than our family. We're better than another person. We're thinner. We're skinnier. We're smarter. We're richer. Oh, at some point, how much of your nose can you really cut off to look like Snake Boy, Michael Jackson? I mean, there's gotta be a cutoff point where it's no longer about what we project to other people, but what we project inside to ourselves.
but that's that
And so
internal accountability that we're hypothesizing is lacking.
yeah, and maybe with this show, maybe we'll give people a fun way to explore it.
Well, and remind ourselves, even in our own lives, that it's important to be mindful of the impact your actions have on yourself as well, or even your thought patterns.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole purpose. And even when I tell my students in magic and mysticism, I'll get students all over the place. They wanna wave a wand or burn a candle and get Joe to fall in love with them or to, like, win the lottery or to get a job. And they think that this exterior action is going to give them what they want. And the greatest thing I think I might have ever said in my life, I'm sure it's inspired by my angel, which said that magic is not the last ditch effort that you can use on your life to make up for all the lousy decisions you've made.
Sure. Yeah.
Why should the spirit and the candle help you out
Yeah.
when
Why do
you
you get a
haven't?
get out of jail free card?
Yeah, it's not. In fact, as Aleister Crowley once said, doing a ritual to do money in a ritual is much harder than to go out and get a job. I mean, and he's right. All right,
He's
so
totally right.
you're talking to somebody who spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on every book known to man about magic. Okay, and you know that because you had to
Yeah,
move the boxes.
I've seen it.
And so, all right, to do a money ritual, you have to burn this color candle in this direction on this day in this hour from the almond branch with no twig on it at the break of dawn with 1 or 2 drops of dew from the east.
Oh, God.
Dude, just open up the, recycler. Just go
Go
into
get a job.
Craigslist. Yeah, Craigslist, get a job.
That's
What the
funny.
hell?
That's very funny.
You
It makes you
know?
wonder if Aleister Crowley had a day job. Because he was doing this shit back in the day where I don't think it was way
No.
abnormal to be this
He was
character.
no, Crowley was born on October 12th, 1875 in Leamington Spa, England, and his father was, the head of a distillery of Crowley Ale. Aleister Crowley was born into a family of multimillionaires in
Oh, I didn't know
1875.
that.
Oh, yeah. He published his own books. He did it. He paid for himself all the way through life. Yeah,
Huh? Well, good on him for having the ability to he wouldn't have been him without that freedom, to be fair.
absolutely.
He wouldn't have been Crowley if
Absolutely.
he had to report to, the gas station and pull an 8-hour shift that day. He wouldn't come home and write the book of the law. He would go to bed like a normal person.
Oh my god. No, it's totally true. It's on that level. I mean, also look at publishing again. It's like the person who can publish has it all set up. And again, we were talking about the sun sign Cancer, right? So if a person had this like Cancer rising, that means that they would have Capricorn in the 7th, Aquarius in the 8th, and Pisces in the 9th. And what kind of publishing would that be? Spirituality, new age, hypnotherapy, exotic, strange ideas, travel books, So when Crowley was doing all this stuff, he paid his way through. He spent all of his money. But you
Well,
know what? He left a really cool legacy, as I would say other people have, but they never did it the way he did it, that's for sure.
yeah, he was a force for sure. I think he warrants his own episode
Oh, yeah,
easily.
and probably a few,
Yeah.
you know? But anyway,
The crows are calling.
live from the Devil's Tower, you've been listening to another episode of To the Moon with Voxx. I'd like to give a special thank you to this week's Patreon subscribers, Phoenix, Bizad, Sharon, Stephanie, and Griffin. Thank you so much. Your support keeps the show going. Remember to follow us on social media by visiting voxx.org/contact. That's voxx.org. And you can leave the show a voicemail at 307-212-8239. And who knows, we might just read your questions on the air. Until next time, everyone, have a mystical, magical day.